There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, The Church of Failure, and with me as always, my trusty co-host, Eric McCartney, who wanted to get some sleep tonight, but I was like, no, fuck that. We're going to do a surprise show. Fuck your sleep.
So not just a surprise to me.
Right.
So.
You know, everyone. I got a wild hair up my ass halfway through the day, and I was like, we didn't do a Monday show. And we haven't done radio in a while because we've had guests, and I love our guests. I do. And I like doing these radio shows, and I like playing Pokemon and naming them inappropriate things. And tonight we have a very special treat for you guys. Instead of doing a poll and deciding whether they're going to do the Shadow or the Blue Beetle or Sherlock Holmes or whatever else, I took it upon myself to pull some Orson Welles out of my back pocket. And found some commentaries that he had done, some 15-minute radio no sponsors, nothing like that. But go ahead.
Did you pull up that famous one of him drunk off his ass, getting pissed off at the writing of one of the scripts? Please, not that one.
No, not that one. Not yet. We're gonna draw him in lightly because Orson Welles is how do the kids say it these days? Based and red-pilled. And before those were a thing, the based god ain't got nothing on Orson Welles. And you, ladies and gentlemen, will find that out later tonight. But we will also be continuing our gameplay of Pokemon Emerald with the All-Star cast. Yeah, this is Leaf Green, my bad. Green titles. What do you want from me? Don't judge me. With the all-star cast of Ron Jeremy, Putinchu, Shadow Nose, Deepook Esquire, Bad Maxine, and Trotsky in the lineup right now.
I forgot about the names on those.
So we have some Nuzlocke rules going on, and we've got some Orson Welles in the playlist. I am hurting children in the background, so if the movement stops on the gameplay for a minute, that's just me in the background, but you will still have the radio play. I won't stop that. Let's see, are there any questions? Any questions in the chat? Nobody's in the chat? What's going on here? You guys are pointing me. Novel Bro should be here for this. He'll appreciate it more than anyone. I did call him out on the Discord, but, share the link out, get some people in here. We will be done by the time Rackets goes on at midnight, so no worries on that. That's Eastern Standard Time. But without further ado, guys, if there is no questions or concerns in the chat, we will start with some Orson Welles commentary and let whoever's going to get here before we start War of the Worlds at the 15-minute mark here. So here we go.
And I cannot wait for this.
Okay. Are you sure? You sure you can't wait?
I'm super excited.
This is Orson Welles speaking. A motion picture in which I play a part was scheduled for a couple of days running last week in Aiken, South Carolina. But the film was banned. Well, I'm used to being banned. I've been banned by whole governments. The Nazis in Germany have banned me, and the fascists of Italy and Spain have banned me. Here at home, the merest mention of my name is forbidden by Mr. Hearst to all his subject newspapers. But to be outlawed by an American city is a new experience. The movie in question is neither controversial nor obscene. But I'm in it, and for the taste of Aiken, that makes any movie too offensive to be endured. Not only was the actual celluloid driven out of the city limits as with a fiery sword, but in defense of civic sensitivities and to protect the impressionable of Aiken's youth from the shock of my name and likeness, a detachment of police officers working under the direction of the city council itself solemnly tore down such posters as the local theater manager had been rash enough to put up by way of advertisement, and burnt same, together with all printed matter having reference to me, in a formal bonfire in the public streets. I'm also informed that I've been somewhat less officially hanged in effigy. And while I have an apology to offer Aiken, it's been suggested that I would be ill-advised to deliver it in person. Since I brought to your attention the case of Isaac Woodward, the case has grown into an issue of the most heated popular concern. It deserves all the national interest it's getting. Isaac Woodward is the veteran whose eyes were beaten out of his head by a policeman in the streets of a place in South Carolina that Isaac Woodward thought was Aiken. He said so in an affidavit, and when I read his affidavit on this program, the mayor of Aiken, the chief of police, and others, subsequently preoccupied with the public burning of my name and picture, sent affidavits of their own protesting innocence. My problem was the choice of affidavits. The boy had been blinded. That was the one clear, brutal fact, and I stuck to that with a promise to Aiken's officialdom that I would apologize for publishing the veteran's testimony when and if my investigators could show a decent doubt. The records were amazingly brief. The policeman who delivered Woodward to the hospital was not named. This is most unusual. The place where the attack occurred was not mentioned in the report. This is almost unheard of. But my investigators, the investigators of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the investigators of the FBI have together narrowed down the search to the town of Batesburg, some 19 miles from Aiken. And this morning comes word that the search has been narrowed still further. I have before me wires and press releases to the effect that a policeman of Batesburg, a man by the name of Shaw, or Shore, or Shull, it is given three different ways here. The flash is just before us. Chief L.L. Shaw, pronounce it however you wanted, or want to, has admitted that he was the police officer who blinded Isaac Woodward, 30 miles from Aiken, in South Carolina. This is in Batesburg. I'll give you a few more of the facts. He's corroborated an Army statement, has Police Chief Shull or Shaw, that ex-serviceman Isaac Woodward Jr. was struck on the head with a blackjack. Chief Shull or Shaw says he was called to a bus one night last February to arrest Woodward, who, and I'm reading from a press association, he said was drunk. Shaw claimed to have hit Woodward across the head when Woodward tried to take away his blackjack. He added that the blow may have landed in the veteran's eyes. Shull or Shaw, the police chief, described the eyes as swollen the next day when Woodward was fined in the recorder's court, and said he then drove Woodward to a veterans hospital at a doctor's suggestion. Now, you'll remember from the affidavit and from further reports of our investigators that Woodward said he'd been offered liquor after he was attacked by the police, which he refused. And investigators of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Peoples have discovered 3 other occupants of that bus, all of whom claim in affidavits that Woodward was not drunk, nor was he drinking. Woodward, you remember, appealed for medical aid. And also, according to the UP, Shaw or Shore or Shull brands these stories as lies. He has volunteered no information for this. He was unearthed by investigation. Well, the good citizens of Aiken must be surely so glad to hear this that my apology, tendered herewith and as per promise, most abjectly, will come as merely incidental comfort. Batesburg, unlike Aiken, has turned out to be to blame. The search is narrowed down. We're getting close to the truth. We have the admission of a man that he was the officer whom I called X. Well, I would like to remind Officer X, otherwise known as Shull or Shaw, of another promise. Promise I made to the blinded Isaac Woodward. If Chief Shull or Shaw is listening to me now, and it's more than possible that he is, it gives me pleasure to repeat that promise. Officer X, We know your name now. Now that we've found you out, we'll never lose you. If they try you for your crime, I am going to watch the trial, Chief Shaw. If they jail you, I'm going to wait for your first day of freedom. You won't be free of me. I want to see who's waiting for you at the prison gates. I want to know who will acknowledge that they know you. I'm interested in your future. I will take note of all your destinations. Assume another name, and I will be careful that the name you would forget is not forgotten, Officer Shaw or Shaw, police chief of the city of Batesburg. I will find means to remove from you all refuge. You can't get rid of me. We have an appointment. You and I. And only death can cancel it. Our scene changes now to the sovereign state of Texas. They're holding a little election. They held it. We're so close they're going to have a runoff. It's nothing important. It's just a governorship at stake. It's nothing to be excited about. It's just whether we're going to have a democratic education and freedom in Texas or not. It's nothing to be concerned about. Just a matter of who will control the Democratic delegation from Texas to the next Democratic National Convention. Of course, there's some people in Texas who are excited. Old Jesse Jones and the oil interests are very head up. So are the railroad people. They poured $500,000 cash onto the barrelhead. They want to elect a man they can trust. The man they can trust is named Buford Jester. He's the railroad commissioner at the present time, so naturally the railroad people are backing him. Old Jesse Jones hates Harry Truman and Henry Wallace, so he doesn't want Jester's opponent, a Truman-Wallace man, to win. On the other side of the fence is an avowed New Dealer, Homer Rainey, Dr. Homer Rainey, who knows wherever he speaks. He was president of the University of Texas just a little while back when the big money boys ganged up and knocked him out of his job. You remember there was something very close to rioting among the students, but Rainey's out. So now Rainey is running for governor with money still piled up on the opposite side of the fence. Mr. Jester is spending money in great lumps, and herein hangs a tale. One of the mediums Mr. Jester is using is a recently organized public relations and advertising firm named Watson Associates of Dallas, Texas. I have a photostat of the registration certificate of Watson Associates filed with the county clerk in Dallas, Texas on March 14th, 1946 at 3:06 p.m. It shows that the first name listed of those who swore they will conduct the business of Watson Associates is that of a very interesting gentleman named Philip E. Fox of Dallas, Texas. Now, I am particularly interested in Mr. Fox because of the fact that he is now one of candidate Buford Jester's advisors and aides. And if Mr. Jester becomes governor of Texas, he'll give a lot of power to those who helped elect him. So who is Philip E. Fox? Philip E. Fox is an ex-convict. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Everyone is entitled to a fair chance. But Mr. Philip E. Fox was convicted of a crime which, for the moment, I'm not permitted to name on this radio program, but I promise to name it next week when I can show the lawyers gathered here my proof for the contention. Philip E. Fox was convicted of this nameless crime on December 22nd, 1923 in Atlanta, Georgia. Even that is forgivable, perhaps, although it isn't usually considered very nice to have ex-cons and convicted, I can't name the crime, working for you in a political campaign. But there's one more X about Philip E. Fox of Dallas, Texas, which interests me even more. Philip E. Fox is the former publicity director of the Ku Klux Klan. Philip E. Fox was editor of the Klan's official publication, The Nighthawk. In fact, the murder excuse me, I should never have said that word, for which Fox, it is claimed, went to jail, involved his shooting an attorney for an opposing faction of the Ku Klux Klan. This is the same Philip E. Fox who is vigorously assisting in the campaign to elect big money Buford Jester as governor of the sovereign state of Texas. I thought the voters of Texas might like to know about these things. Well, scene changes again. This time it's Washington. And we find ourselves in the Statler Hotel on the 9th floor. Clean, cool room. A phone is ringing. The man who rented the room has just opened the door when he hears the annoying rumble. He answers something like this. Yes, Morris, this is dash dash. I'm just back from the State Department. Of course, I'd be glad to tell you all about what happened. Sure, come on up. The speaker was one of the 6 American members of the Anglo-American Palestine Commission. He hung up the phone, turned to the newspaper man who'd come upstairs with him and swore bitterly. Those poor, miserable people, he said, having to duck around corners all the time, pleading for information like they live behind barbed wire. Why does the world have to be like this? Why must the fate of millions of people be settled in Star Chamber proceedings? Why are those striped pants diplomats so determined to reduce the Jews to the status of second-class citizenship? And the newspaper man sat there coldly in the hotel room, a little cynically. He'd heard visitors to Washington talk like this before, but rarely with such bitterness. The citizen-turned-statesman was mad clean through. He resumed his outburst. You know, there were 10 of us sitting in that room. There wasn't a Jew among us, just the acting Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, Henry Grady, the 2 men just back from London who tried to sell Europe's Jews into the partition ghetto in Palestine, and we 6, the American members of the Anglo-American Commission. It was ghastly the way the State Department tried to rationalize it. They were looking for an out. We 6 men had spent 3 months studying the issue. 6 Englishmen appointed by the British cabinet were also on the commission. We were unanimous in our findings. We agreed perfectly. Even the British went along on every single point. That's how obvious the Palestine situation is. We all went to London together. We heard weeks of testimony here. Then we went to Palestine and heard the Jews tell their story, and we heard the Arabs tell their story, and we were still unanimous. Now the State Department, fawning over the British Foreign Office, is trying to sell us out. Man settles down in his chair, lights a cigarette. Newspaper man takes notes. The voice continues. One of the members of our commission is Billy Phillips. You may have heard of him. He's been a diplomat for years, a State Department man for decades, but he's an honest man. He was an ambassador until recently. He was an ambassador to India and minister to London. When he heard the British Foreign Office proposal, he was violent. When he heard we were thinking of accepting it, you know what he asked? He asked, how long, Mr. Acheson, does the State Department plan to continue as the tail of the British kite? Of course, this is all off the record, concluded the news source. Of course, replied the newspaper man. Of course, says Orson Welles, who got this story from the newspaper man. It's all off the record. Let's let the people sell the people for oil. Let them sell people for alliances and bases in the Middle East, of course. But let's keep it off the record. I wonder if we should. The word from Paris is unhappy. More of that next week. I think I have just time for now to read you a letter. Before I do, I'd just like to make this comment. International organization, though. I do think that we ought to stop giving up hope every day when we read about what's happening in Paris. I think we ought to realize that the best hope for international organization, the way the world is run nowadays, is the separate, selfish need of every nation for world peace. We mustn't expect a shiny, ready-made millennium in our time. Well, here's the letter, dear Mr. Wells. Some women would bake you a cake or knit you a necktie, but here's a poem, and it's from Dorothy Littleworth, who I see lives in Buffalo, and I liked her poem, and I'm going to read it because I just have time for it. It says, for Orson Welles. There is no cozy warmth about this shame as one might feel who shyly blushed at praise. There is a bitter, cold, consuming flame, a knowledge we must live with all our days. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. I hold these truths to be self-evident. There is no incantation will prevent the murder of a black man, or restore to him his pride, or give him back his sight. Words are but pebbles on a homemade sling against this wickedness, but I will fling them ceaselessly with all my little might. It is some comfort that your arm can bring the broadsword of the champion to fight. Thank you, Dorothy Littleworth, for that poem. Thank you for letting me read it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for letting me join you. And please let me join you again next week, same time, same station. Until then, I remain, as always, obediently yours.
This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
So how about that?
Man, ABC was a little bit more loose on their rules back in the day for radio, weren't they?
I mean, you know, there were certain things you could say back then. Feel me?
But that was fantastic. How drunk do you think he was during that?
I mean, all of it. I think he was all of it drunk.
I cannot wait to see what you have lined up for us next. If it's anything compared to that, it's going to be amazing.
Oh, no. We're gonna close out with another segment just like that. But in the meantime, we actually have the full hour-long War of the Worlds broadcast.
All right.
So if you guys want an intermission, let us know around the 30-minute mark. Oh, his breakfast was definitely whiskey and Cheerios. That was the breakfast of champions.
And the whiskey was instead of the milk, just so everybody's clear.
Right, yeah, whiskey and Cheerios.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll go ahead and queue up the full War of the Worlds broadcast. And like I said, around the half-hour mark, if you guys in the chat need a break, need an intermission where we'll droll on for a little bit, let us know. But just plan on letting this roll through, and then we'll pick back up after this finishes up and yap on for a little bit. We'll play our last little bit of Orson Welles. We'll close out the broadcast in time for Ricada to start dreaming late and gay, like always. So
it's almost like we know what we're doing.
Oh, yeah, well, almost. These are easy shows. Don't let me bullshit you. Maybe Wheaties. Yeah, those would soak up the whiskey a little bit better, I think. So maybe.
Yeah.
This is Orson Welles speaking. A motion picture in which I play a part was scheduled for a couple of days running last week in Aiken, South Carolina. But the film was banned.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. Near the end of October, business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you will be entertained by the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring you the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra. With a touch of the Spanish, Raymond Raquello leads off with La Comparsita.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving toward the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Ramon Raquello, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York.
And now a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust, Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with the noted astronomer, Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We return you until then to the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra. We are ready now to take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, where Carl Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton. I'm standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through the giant lens. I'll ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides the ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world. Professor, may I begin our questions?
Any time, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point nearest the Earth, in opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor Pearson?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mr. Phillips. Although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're quite convinced, as a scientist, that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I should say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for these gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems a safe enough distance. Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pearson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. One moment, please. Professor Pearson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the Natural History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Unquote. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearer home, comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and will have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a word picture of the scene as soon as he can reach there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millett and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again, out at the Wilmot Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and myself made the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin. To paint for you a word picture of the strange scene before my eyes, like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree. It must have struck on its way down. But I can see the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. At least not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge cylinder. Has a diameter of, what would you say, Professor Pearson?
What's that?
What would you say, what's the diameter of this?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. The metal on the sheath is, well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. The curious spectators now are pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. Getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing one side, please? While the police are pushing the crowd back. Here's Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmot, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmot.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, closer.
Yes. I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsing. That professor fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half dozing and half...
Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfway.
Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then you saw something.
Well, not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound like this. Kind of like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, then what?
I turned my head out the window and would have sworn I was asleep and dreaming.
Yes?
I seen a kind of greenish streak and then zingo. Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmot?
Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you want me to
No,
tell
that's
someone
quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field in back of us, and the police are trying to rope off the roadway leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. The car's headlights throw an enormous spotlight on the pit where the object's half buried. Now, some of the more daring souls now are venturing near the edge. The silhouettes stand out against the metal shield. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with the policeman. Now, the policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already on your radio. Listen, please. Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Here. Now, we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Professor Pearson?
Yes, Mr. Brooks.
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial. Not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth, and you can see it's cylindrical
Just a
shape.
minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw, and the thing must be hollow.
He's moving! Keep back there! Keep back there! Keep those men back! Keep back there! Keep those idiots back! Take off! The top's loose! Look out there! Stand back!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's crawling out or something. I can see turning out of that black hole two luminous discs. The eyes, it might be a face, might be almost... Good heavens, something wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one, and another one, and another one. They look like tentacles to me. Oh, yeah, I can see the thing's body now. It's large as a bear. It glistens like wet leather, but that face, ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. It's so awful. The eyes are black, and they gleam like a serpent. The mouth is kind of V-shaped with saliva dripping from its rimless lips. It seems to quiver and pulsate, and the monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's rising up now, and the crowd falls back. They've seen plenty. The most extraordinary experience, ladies and gentlemen. I can't find words. Well, I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on, will you, please? I'll be right back in a minute.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmuth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmuth's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain's conferring with someone. Can't quite see who. Oh, yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted, and the professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. Flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Wait a minute, something's happening. Humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles spreading everywhere. Coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there's some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill, their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I have been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far west as Princeton and east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass issued by state or military authorities. 4 companies of state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the range of military operations. Thank you.
You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back in their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you to... Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pearson, brought to you by direct wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can give you no authoritative information either as to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. This intense heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Now here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia, stationed outside of Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here's a bulletin from State Police, Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there is no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We have received a request from the state militia of Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. Things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms, crossing back and forth in front of the lights. Looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Millstone River. Probably fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it'll all be over. Now, wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wilmouth farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an old metal tube. A tub, rather. Well, wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal, kind of a shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. What? It's standing on legs, actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover Mills has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued, except routing some of the trains through Allerton and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, the fugitives will have swelled Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton. It is estimated to twice their normal population. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. At this time, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. We're informed that the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here's a special bulletin, New York. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voiced the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops, moving north toward Somerville with population fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use, although advancing at express train speed. Invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first, embedded in the great swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up the second invading unit before the cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up a position in the foothills of Watchung Mountains. Another bulletin from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Machines also sighted by telephone operator east of Middlesex within 10 miles of Plainfield. Here's a bulletin from Winston Field, Long Island. A fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosive flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've run special wires to the artillery line and adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery, located in the Watchung Mountains.
Range 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire.
140 yards to the right, sir.
Shift range 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire.
Hit, sir. Got the tripod of one of them. They're stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire.
Can't see the tail land, sir. Letting off a smoke.
What is it?
Black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Flying close to the ground. Moving fast.
Put on gas masks. Get ready to fire. Shift to 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire.
Still can't see, sir. Smoke's coming nearer.
Get the range.
30 feet. Meters.
23 meters.
23 meters. 22 degrees.
22 degrees.
Army bombing plane B-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Bolt, commanding 8 bombers, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Bolt reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled. Believed hit by shell from Army gun in Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog hanging close to the earth of extreme density, nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing Passaic River into the Jersey marshes. Another straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. The machines are close together now, and we're ready to attack. Planes circling, ready to strike. 1,000 yards, and we'll be over the first. $800 yards. $600. $400. $200. There they go. The giant arm raised. Green flash. They're spraying us with flame. 2,000 feet. Engines are giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them, plane and all. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8.
This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. One enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of...
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard.
Two X2L calling CQ, 2X2L calling CQ, 2X2L calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? K, please. Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building. I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway is still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end. People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor, all manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed. Noise in crowds like New Year's Eve in city. Wait a minute, the enemy is now in sight above the Palisades. Five great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook. A bulletin is handed me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside of Buffalo, one in Chicago, St. Louis. Seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. Steel cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running toward the East River, thousands of them, dropping in like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue. 5th Avenue. 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
Calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ, New York. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in an original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, starring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air.
As I set down these notes on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I've been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off. All that happened before the arrival of the world now seems part of another life. A life that has no continuity with the present. Furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hand and I try to connect them with a professor who lives at Princeton and who on the night of October 20th glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? Writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. Find moldy bread in the kitchen and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. Keep watch at the window. Time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. Smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. Morning. Morning. Sun streams in the window. The black cloud of gas is lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm had passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road, no traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. Push on north. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I've seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of trees, I'm ready to fling myself flat on the earth. I come to a chestnut tree. October. Chestnuts are ripe. Fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature. A small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him and wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion. The joy of finding another living being. Push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy and a silo, remained standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse, deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. North. Next day, I come to a city. City vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off as if a giant had sliced off its highest towers with a capricious sweep of his hand. Reached the outskirts, I found Newark. Newark, undemolished but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it, and it rose up and became a man. A man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where do you come from?
I come from many places. A long time ago, from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
Grover's Mill. There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town down the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
Hey, what was that? Did you hear something just then?
No. Only a bird. A live bird.
Yeah. You get to know that birds have shadows these days. Say, we're in the open here. Let's crawl in this doorway here and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
No. They're going over to New York. Night, the sky's alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
Fly?
Yeah, fly.
Then it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I. 2 of us left.
Yeah. They got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard. That's good. There wasn't any war. Any more than there's war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're eatable ants. I found that out. What'll they do to us?
I thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. A Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run. But they won't keep on doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic, like keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They have not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. No, instead of our rushing around blind, we got to fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress.
Yes, but if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so, and no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
What is there left?
Life, that's what. I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either. Tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on. Right under their feet. I got a plan. We men, as men, we're finished. We don't know enough. We got to learn plenty before we got a chance. We've got to live and keep free while we learn, see? I've thought it all out, see?
Well, tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts. That's what it got to. That's what it got to be. That's why I watched you. Watched you. All those little office workers that used to live in these houses. They be no good. They haven't any stuff in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running to catch their commuter's train in the morning, afraid they'd get canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they wouldn't be in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, and on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. The Martians, they'll be a godsend for those guys. Nice roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, after a week or so of chasing around the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure, you bet I have. That isn't all. These Martians are going to make pets of some of them. Train them to do tricks. Who knows, get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah, and some maybe they'll train to hunt us.
Oh, no, it's impossible. Human.
Yes, they will. There's men who do it gladly. One of them ever comes after me, by...
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. Under New York, there are miles and miles of them. The main ones, they're big enough for anybody. Then there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, huh? We'll get a bunch of strong men together. No weaklings. That rubbish, out.
As you meant me to go.
All right. Give you a chance, didn't I?
Won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Well, we got to make safe places for us to stay in, see? Get all the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. May not be so much we have to learn before... Listen. Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left. Not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, see? But men. Men who've learned the way how. May even be in our time. Gee. Imagine having one of them lovely things with its heat ray wide and free. We'd turn it on Martians. We'd turn it on men. We'd bring everybody down on their knees.
That's your plan.
You. Me. A few more of us. We'd own the world.
I see.
Hey. Hey, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Bye, stranger. Well, after parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel, entered that silent tube. Anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. Reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s, stood alone on Times Square, caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. Made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. Walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks. Past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark. Past a shooting gallery where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. Over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of black birds circling in the sky. Hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine, standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see, standing in a silent row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground. And there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared.
Plain, after all, man's defenses had failed. By the humblest thing that God, His wisdom, has put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I've conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastnesses of sidereal space. But a remote dream, maybe that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve to them and not to us. Is the future ordained, perhaps? Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record, begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the dissembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it. Bright and clean-cut, hard and silent under the dawn of that last great day.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo. Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates. By tomorrow night, so we did the best next thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian, it's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations coast to coast has brought you The War of the World by H.G. Wells, the 17th in its weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. Next week, we present a dramatization of 3 famous short stories. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That was pretty fantastic. I don't know what you thought about it, but it definitely got me in the holiday spirit.
Oh yeah, perfect start to October, and the only holiday really that I celebrate besides St. Patrick's Day.
That's not a holiday. That's a drunkard's day. Don't get it wrong. Nothing holy about St. Patrick's Day.
It has the word saint in it.
So does St. Valentine's Day, and that's a celebration of murder.
I thought it was a celebration of greeting card companies.
Well, that too. But also murder.
And big chocolate.
Oh yeah, Russell Stover definitely has a vested interest in Valentine's Day. What exactly are you disavowing, Danielle? I'm not sure what you're disavowing. Because of the delay and whatnot. St. Patrick's Day?
Or are you disavowing Valentine's Day?
Or disavowing us in general? Any of these things are, acceptable answers.
Yeah. There's no wrong answer with this one.
In fact, all of those things are right answers. My Irish St. Patrick's Day. I was telling Ayrton off the air that I found an Irish whiskey by the name of Writer's Tears. So I've got to try this before it sells out. Valentine's Day can kiss my white ass. Well, I understand how you feel about that. Don't hold back now. Make sure you tell us how you really feel. But
I mean, Valentine's Day is stupid, isn't it?
What now?
I said Valentine's Day is kind of stupid, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, you're supposed to celebrate your loved ones on the day that, a bunch of people were murdered in the name of a patron saint. I always got pissed off that St. Leonard didn't have a holiday. You have no idea who Saint. You have no idea who that is, do you? I'm gonna pull it up on a browser here so you can see it.
Please tell me he's like the patron saint of like muffins or something like that.
No, man, he's the patron saint of prisoners, captives, and slaves, which I roughly translate into the patron saint of criminals.
Fair enough.
The only well, he's the only patron saint that I actually wore a charm for at any given time. I used to wear a St. Leonard pendant everywhere I went until it got all like tarnished and whatnot. I didn't want to wear it anymore. Eventually got to get one that's actually, stainless steel or sterling silver or something that doesn't, change.
Right. Like, not like that nickel plated crap.
Oh god, nickel plated's the worst. It turns everything green. I didn't even wear it on my penis. It turned my penis green.
I think there might be a different cause to that, not the pendant.
Quiet, you. But I do have a final commentary from Orson Welles to close up the night with. So that's another 15 minutes or so. Tomorrow, do you want to talk about what we're doing tomorrow? Figure that out while we're here.
Sure. Are we doing This Week in Comics, or are we starting the Alan Moore series?
I think we should do This Week in Comics tomorrow.
All right,
but
that's fair.
Instead of covering a lot of news, I remember. You remember what we did with San Diego Comic-Con?
Yes.
Well, New York Comic-Con is going on this week.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I believe Optic Decay is going to be there. I might reach out to him and see if he has the time to call in since it's on the East Coast. Maybe he can give us a shout and give us maybe a live update.
Our field reporter.
Yep. If he's willing, I don't expect him to. He doesn't even know that I'm going to DM him and ask him to come on for a few minutes and talk about it. But I'm going to reach out, and if he does, it'll be great. If not, whatever. We'll talk to him after he gets back. But
that'd be cool.
We will look at everything that's been announced, everything that takes place and is reported on. We'll find some takes on it, and we'll degenerately look through it. I'll acquire some whiskey, be properly sauced. You got to keep the machine lubricated if you want it to keep working.
True. Always got check the oil and stuff.
Right. And I mean, my oil is whiskey. So, what are you going to do? Like gasoline.
Yes, which in the old Gaelic does translate to life water.
Right, see?
So, educating y'all up in this bitch.
You only know Gaelic because it's racist. Also, I've gotten, speaking of racist, I've gotten several reports of straight white males that have been to see the Joker and did not shoot up the theater. Pretty cool, I think.
Wow.
You know, good on them.
Yeah. Now, were they able to get into the theater like on their own? Like they just went by themselves?
I don't know that they got in the theater unmolested. No.
Okay.
I'm not sure that happened.
Because I mean, if you walk up with like a girl, they assume you're fine. But
And went and saw Joker too. I'm guessing she also did not, did not perform a terrorist activity at the theater.
We're gonna assume so. I mean, but you know what they say when you assume.
Well, I don't rap, so I mean, if she did,
sure.
I ain't telling nobody. Oh my! I have a 2-year-old attempting to take over the show in the background. You guys, she's a giant bully.
Some parents run a tight ship. It seems like you more run a pirate ship. Lots of alcohol, and there's a mutiny every
other night. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, she runs the show. She's the only one that knows what's going on anymore. She's the captain
She's
now.
the one who's actually running.
She is the captain now. I put her to bed 2 hours ago. Put her to bed an hour ago. I put her to bed 30 minutes ago. I put her to bed 10 minutes ago. It never took. She's asserting her dominance right now. Is basically what's happening. Basically, daring me to
with my dogs. I pin them down and bite them on the ear. That should work with a child. Right?
They frown on you doing that with children. Actually.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. They put you in a special folder if you do that to your kids.
Only if somebody finds out about it.
I mean, they're going to. But
fair enough.
So yeah, we'll cover some New York Comic Con. You got any idea what you want to look at this week? What you might want to review?
I'm thinking I didn't get a chance to read it after work today because I passed the fuck out until you texted me. But I'm thinking that Lights Over East Berlin probably looks the most intriguing out of everything I got.
Well, this is the end of X-Men's run on X-Men as well. I'm sorry, I'm fascinated by the 2-year-old asserting her dominance in the background.
What's up, Matt? Christy?
Hey, how's it going, buddy? Oh, you're not late. This is an impromptu show. We definitely appreciate you stopping by. You may want to check it out on replay. You'll find out what Orson Welles has to say about the JQ. There may even be more. I didn't finish the commentary that he's putting on next. I only listened to the first one, so apparently there's a lot. Hey, what's going on, Einbrecht? A programmer likes you guys, by the way. Thanks, man. We definitely appreciate it. It's actually kind of, just this is a bullshit impromptu show. He should definitely check us out when we're in our full game.
Right.
But let's see here. Oh no,
But,
I'm being
Go
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there's still one more issue of the Hickman run before it's over, and that'll come out this next week.
Well, House of X, I meant, is over.
Yeah, House of X is over, but the story not entirely over yet.
Yeah, and I guess you kind of got to look at it together because of how it interlaces.
Yeah, and the time jumping and and the weird.
Well, the second piece of Orson Welles commentary that I have here is called "The Bikini Atomic Test."
I'm scared.
I am too, because I haven't listened to this one all the way through. Yeah, absolutely. We're both calling the police on ourselves. But with that, we'll go ahead and play this, and then we'll close up the evening for you guys. Everybody can be in tune for Rackets tonight on Nick Riccado, Lost Planing the Interwebs over on YouTube.
So settle in and prepare to be sued by the ACLU just for listening to the show.
On your mark.
That's right.
Get set. Go. Testing. On your mark. Get set. Go. The mark is Sunday, June 30th, 1946. Get set for 2 tremendous explosions and go. Well, you might as well go to the hills, or maybe the moon would be safer. After they drop that thing at 5:30 tonight, we may all go to glory. There's a widespread fear, you know, among those who mutter of chain reactions, and among those who mutter about the chains of reaction, political reaction, there's a deadly certainty that after they drop that thing at midnight, that thing called OPA, we'll all of us be going to the hot place in a sleigh with bells on, down a steep, greased chute. On your mark, get set for the 2 big explosions. 4 days before the 4th, they're setting off the 4th of the atomic cannon crackers. You know, the South Seas used to be the place where men went to escape the world. On this particular Sabbath morning, or rather evening, the world is hoping to escape what men are doing in the South Seas. Bikini is just the sort of palm-jeweled coral necklace we've been asked to sigh over in the movie travelogues, while on the soundtrack was heard the sultry plunk of the ukulele and the sexy gliss of the guitar. Bikini is just the sort of place you'd think a grimy, crowded planet like ours could least afford to part with. But after supper time as the clocks are set here in the East, everything worth saving about Bikini will be past saving. The ukuleles will be heard no more. 6:30 or 5:30 rather, a new noise is going on the soundtrack. It will be widely noted. Various prime ministers, generalissimos, and kings are expected to hear that noise and to ponder its meaning. One king will hear it literally. His up to now serene majesty, Jemata Kabwa, sitting in cross-legged state on Rongerik, surrounded by all the 116 of his subjects, will hear in a few hours the curious and solemn sounds made by a kingdom when it goes quite factually to kingdom come. The thoughts in Downing Street and in the Kremlin are in the scope of guessing, but what will be the thoughts on the island of Rongerik, where the banished monarch of Bikini with his banished people are confronted with the terrible flatulence of a civilization with a sour stomach? Perhaps Jemata Kabwa and his court will turn aside discreetly and change the subject. It's my fear that the rest of the world, its populations and chieftains, will change the subject too, will turn aside too soon when the pyrotechnical display is finished and the O's and R's are over, when the smoke of the fireworks has been photographed and syndicated and starts to clear. Could be otherwise, and that's my Sunday prayer, that it will be. With much tall talk about chain reactions, the Jeremiahs are preparing for the end of our world, my time 5:30. With much double talk about scientific tests, the admirals are preparing for the beginning of a new navy. Between the navy's mere costly and foolish skywriting and doomsday, I'll take the skywriting, but my prayer is for something somewhere between a naval trump card and the trump of doom. If the experiment this evening should go off precisely according to my specifications, Here's what would happen. Bomb bursting in the sea would, as threatened, set up a tidal wave, a huge atomic water blister on all the dry lands of the living earth. But mine would be a tidal wave with nice man tidal wave. It would consume no cities. My tidal wave would be housebroken in that would break no houses. It would just break down a few doors. The doors, in particular, of a secret session or two. It would announce itself to the foreign ministers with the roar of the apocalypse and with the frightful churnings of eternal chaos. My tidal wave would be selective. It would tickle the toes of the little people and smack lustily at all striped pants. At exactly that point in the pants where a foreign minister or a secretary of state sitting down for a conference places the weight of his dignity and the maximum strain. My tidal wave would spoil all the carpets in all the halls of state. It would rise as a mist over the silly old notion of nations, obscuring boundary lines, wilting the parchment of treaties and the paper under the mapmaker's pencil. Yes, if it was in my power to order up a tidal wave after the bomb blows up in the sea under Bikini tonight, I would order it, please, to spare all the fishes, little and big, but none of the sons and daughters of man, big or small. No lives would be lost, but no souls would be exempt. Because Bikini Atom and the atom bomb have become of late unfashionable topics for conversation. I think that most of us, mostly without conscious thought, have already capitulated to the bomb, have already surrendered our wills to another war. That this will be a battle of push buttons with the speed of light engagements in the ionosphere, that this involves not only another generation of young men and another continent, but all the generations and all the continents is too hideous to be thought of. And therefore, I believe it is not thought of. Therefore, it's put cozily out of mind in these days, as the living in all times have turned their backs on the necessity of death. Because it's silly to brood about the grave, we've commenced to assume that it's silly to brood about the bomb. But there's a difference, a new difference between war and death. All of us must die, but it doesn't follow that all of us must die all at once. It's perfectly possible that we are the ancestors of a great race. This is only possible if the world doesn't come to an end, which is only possible if we can put an end to war making and to war. But there's a wicked, wasting cancer of apathy, chewing at the fibers of our spirit, burning out our potence as a people. From letting George do it, we've turned to the cynicism that says nobody can do it, that peace is past all patching, that the struggle for power by force of arms is part of a cycle of life, like the turning of the leaf in the fall, like the freezing of sap in the winter. We walk erect, wearing shoes on our feet and striding upon pavements, because there were those among us who claimed that our species is divine. And there were others who believed this audacity and set to work on the manufacture of shoes and the making of pavements. The explosion at Bikini is not a law of nature, but an application of law. The bomb is scheduled, not by the influence of the planets, of the turning of the tides, of the endless logic of the calendar. The bomb is scheduled by man, out of season. And unlike winter, it need never come again. I've seen men squatting by the roadside in far and savage places, waiting with glazed eyes for the coming of death, because they had decided that death himself had decided to come. In the cities today, in the faces of those walking in the streets, in the eyes of my friends, I see now the same idiot resignation. We've decided we are too small for the big thing that we have built. There's nothing behind this decision but mumbo-jumbo and the shock of panic. We who once were cannibals, we who have moved from the cave to the cathedral, have presently surrendered at the very brink of catastrophe to the ancient lie that we can change the world, but that we cannot change ourselves. So it is that atom warfare is no longer chic table talk, because of the doubt festering in our bones that we are incapable of atomic peace. My tidal wave then would be tailor-made to reinstate the topic. My tidal wave would give it top priority. It would kill nobody, but it would give everybody's feet wet. It would give everybody wet feet, rather. I'm not convinced that the noisy ritual of Operations Crossroads will accomplish anything, but I'd be very happy indeed if it would give us all the children of men, just a taste of the deluge. The second explosion on our timetable is the blowing up at midnight of price control, and there'll be more left of bikini than of the OPA. When the history of the coming inflation is written, tomorrow will probably be known as Black Monday. Certainly the black market will be nothing compared to it. Automobiles, just for one instance. Buyers up from South America will be paying $5,000 for about anything on four wheels tomorrow afternoon. Some eye-weary innocent on the linotype machine in a newspaper plant in Virginia a few days ago set up the word butter for bitter in an OPA story, and the impression was given out that controls had been lifted. In that town, the price of butter was $1.50 a pound. Give you an idea. So Black Monday may be Mad Monday on the chapter heading of tomorrow. To the President, our warmest congratulations for his veto of a bill for price control which never could have been administered. Harry Truman was a statesman when he signed that veto, but also a politician of no small maturity in the bargain. After all the Mad Mondays are over and the nation settles down to a solid bout of inflation, it won't be so easy for the friends of inflation to blame the President for the wonders they've worked. There's even a faint flicker of hope for some control of living costs showing on the far horizon, but make no mistake, the hope is faint indeed. Regarding the first explosion on this noisy night, and control of further explosions, control of the atom, Mr. Baruch's charts notwithstanding, is still a matter of black blank debate between those that have the bomb and those who want the bomb. The strength of the American position is the simple and tremendous fact of possession. But the fact that we have the bomb is also the center of the weakness of our moral argument. The weakness of the Russian argument is the emphasis on treaties, the opposition to a supranational board of control, and the insistence on a big power veto. The weakness of the Russian position is the lack of the bomb. The Baruch plan is not so much a plan as a rough second draft. It's fine in some ways, in others it's full of flaws. But the Russians are refusing to give up something they don't have. Maybe that Russia won't feel generous about the matter until Russia has something tangible to be generous about. On the weapon, and maybe that until she has the weapon, she'll never talk sense about it. It may be that all the nations must have all the bombs they can use before international law can be written and enforced. That may well be a case of too much and too late. Stalemate may be our solution, but it's a poor one and a dreadfully dangerous experiment in diplomacy. Only a plan, mutually and heartily agreed upon by all the nations, can match the size of the emergency. And the way things are going now, only the organized indignation of the plain peoples everywhere can enforce such a plan. That goes to the organized indignation of plain peoples everywhere can bring back price control and hold the price line. Let's start to organize. Here's a footnote on bikini. I don't know what this means, or even if it has meaning, but I can't resist mention of the fact that this much can be revealed concerning the appearance of tonight's atom bomb. It will be decorated with a photograph, a sizable likeness, of a young lady named Rita Hayworth. Not long ago, I watched quite another sort of young lady paint her lips with something called over-the-counter the atom lipstick. The case of the cosmetic being fashioned according to the popular conceptions of the original war engine. I'm sure you won't need to be told that Miss Hayworth is not one to use such a thing or to hold it as anything less than a very hideous conceit. Her face is not on the atom bomb, then, by her own choosing, but by election of the flyers who will drop the bomb and who are clearly the business according to their tastes. As regards selection, I find their taste beyond reproach, but the bomb dropping itself had better be worthy of the accompanying photograph. Is this, Faustus claimed of Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships and burnt the topless towers of Ilium? Well, I want a better toast, a better boast for Rebecca. I want my daughter to be able to tell her daughter that grandmother's picture was on the last atom bomb ever to explode. Now my time's about up. About time for me to say goodbye to you. With one more word about this OPA business, if I have a second. You can send a wire, if you will, or a special delivery letter to your congressman or to President Truman upholding his courageous stand and demanding immediate enactment of effective price control legislation. If you do, you'll be saving that dollar and making it worth something. Now my time is up. Thanks for listening. Please let me come to call again this same time. Next week, same station. Until then, I remain obediently yours.
This is the American Broadcasting Company.
Terrorist. I raised a terrorist. Only 2 years old, but you know, he just refuses
She's
to. She just refuses to listen to me. She's a bully. You know how people talk about bullies being a thing now. There's no bigger bully in the world than a 2-year-old.
That's very true, especially if you're not paying attention to them and they want you to pay attention to them.
Oh yeah, they'll hit you. You know, they'll pull your hair. They don't care. They'll scratch you, throw stuff at you. And we always pay attention to my 2-year-old. In fact, most of the time she doesn't want us to pay attention to her. She just wants us to be in her presence, but not like telling her to not do the things she isn't supposed to do.
So she just wants you there as like general observers, but to not actually do anything.
That's no deal, Danielle. I've raised a Jack Russell terrorist. I believe it was Inbrecht in the Discord who said that he liked to play the turret characters from Borderlands because he has what they call turret syndrome. That was pretty clever. Also, again, no deal, Danielle, on the 2 18-month-olds. I'm done once my babies are grown. Never again. In fact, I look forward to the day when they're teenagers and I'm just going to wake up at like 3 o'clock. In fact, I'll just stay up until like 3 o'clock in the morning, wake everyone up in the house with a megaphone, and then go to bed. You know, just have a list of chores on the fridge.
Well, how you should do it is, do the megaphone thing and then take like 3 shots just right back to back and then go to bed.
As they wake up, take a shot for each kid that wakes up. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
As they wake up, just be like, yep, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's kind of the payoff of being a parent, I think, is, the megaphone when they're teenagers on summer vacation. Oh, you thought you were going to sleep until like 10, 11 a.m.? I think not, my good sir and madam. Wake your ass up is what you're going to do. You're going to wash the dishes. You're going to do the laundry. You're going to mop the floor. You're going to rake the yard, cut the grass. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep until 3 p.m.
So you should make them vacuum the yard and sweep the carpet.
Oh, man, that's fucked up.
And then mop the front porch. Make them do ridiculous shit that makes.
I don't want to ruin that many vacuum cleaners. Those things are expensive, and I don't expect my kids to make money because by the time they're grown and able to make money, there'll just be some government entity giving everyone all the money that I earn, and no one will have jobs.
That's a good point. No, you just go to like a thrift store and just buy like a $10 vacuum.
Oh no, better yet, I make them cut the grass with scissors.
and a ruler to make sure it's the right.
Right, it had to be even.
Yeah, exactly.
And see, you and Danielle are on the same page. You guys are more cruel to my children than I am. Awesome. Taking notes here. Look at my adorable 2-year-old thinking, man, I'm going to make you miserable when you're a teenager. And again, when they're teenagers, they're going to make me miserable, I'm pretty sure. I've heard that teenagers are the closest thing to Satan you'll ever find.
I mean, I'm pretty sure teenagers were actually invented by Satan.
Probably.
Like before then, you would just go from from child just straight to 18.
That's what happened.
Like after 10,
yeah, that's
go to 18.
Yeah, that's what happened in the Bible with Jesus. He went from being a child to being 30-something years old.
Yeah. So, and then Satan invented teenagers that 11 to 18 range.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds about right.
I'm sharpen the scissors on a whetstone.
Make him craft the whetstone too, right?
I mean, you don't have to go that far.
What you doing, monkey? What you got? Do you have a monkey? The monkey has a monkey, everyone. Can confirm am spawn of Beelzebub. I'm not looking forward to 3 hormonal teenage girls all at the same time. I feel for you. I really do. I suggest buying a castle instead of a house with 3 towers and just Rapunzeling them.
I mean, that is probably the easiest choice, unless you want gray hair by the time you're.
You can tell you don't have children. You have gray hair. You have gray hair the day after you have a child.
Oh, is that how that works?
It is. It is. The moment they're born, your hair starts turning gray.
Oh. Is it like just one at a time sort of deal?
Oh no, in clumps actually.
Oh. So you kind of look like a coyote with mange, then.
Yes. That's at least what I look like. I'm sure Danielle is probably doing better than I am, but no, with the beard and everything, no, it all just starts turning white. Benefit to red hair, it doesn't gray, it goes white. Yeah, my shit just turns gray. The longest hair in my beard is actually a gray hair.
Oh, because why not?
Yeah. But anyway, I know this show has had absolutely nothing to do about comic books, but I figured let's go ahead and get into the Halloween spirit and give Rackets a nice lead in if you're not catching the one and only Kill Stream over on D Live. He does a playback over on Zencast. I think this is the part where I say if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. If you feel the inclination to
like button,
do that. Links down in the description below of the Streamlabs and the Patreon where you get to make us read things. I'm gonna check the Streamlabs before I log off, make sure I didn't miss anybody sending anything.
yeah, we gotta
not that you, yeah, not that I, but well, actually tomorrow I'm gonna try and troubleshoot and get through going on to Streamlabs OBS, seeing how that works out. Yeah, software.
I tried their mobile app, and it's really annoying.
You're really annoying, so I mean, I guess it works out.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Judging. Nope, didn't miss anything. Woo! But yeah.
We're not horrible people.
No, we're not. But anyway, definitely thanks to everybody. Special shout out to SJW Spider-Man, our current one and only Patreon. Let me make sure that's still correct as well. I haven't checked that in a couple of days. I'm bad at the shilling thing, guys. I'm sorry. I'll get used to it. Yes, our one and only Patreon at the moment, SJW Spidey, the good one. Check him out on Twitter. And, everybody, hail my 2-year-old in the background, issuing demands. I'm going to go wrangle her into bed and settle down.
Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about her hostages, though?
Oh, no, they're gone. I just no, they're done.
Oh, okay.
But definitely, everybody, thanks for coming by, enjoying this with us. If you have any suggestions or anything like that, let us know. Discord down below. Join us before I close that off to patrons only. Good show tonight. First time here, thanks to Enbrecht. And it was fun listening. Looking forward to hearing more of what you guys do. Yeah, definitely stop by tomorrow night where we'll be doing one of our more our normal shows where we'll be talking about New York Comic Con and This Week in Comics where we'll look at 2 new releases. Matt Christie, you have a great night as well. Thanks for stopping by. Danielle, thanks for stopping by. Enbrecht, thanks for stopping by and bringing a friend. Daniel, good to see you again. And Novel Bro, when you hear this on the replay, I told you would have liked it. But anyway, I definitely appreciate it, guys. Thank you again and have a great night. Talk to you tomorrow.
Good night, everyone.